row. The first one on my list, we got John Moore here, who's muted. David Jameson, Daron, Don. Hello, Don. I see D. Where's your friend? You're muted. Oh, there you go. Okay. We've got John, KI6IF.
Hi, Joe.
Hey, hi. And Robert, who I saw at lunch today, and Bill Albright, they've got their video turned off. So let's get started. I have a note here. It says prayer. It's the one thing that I should have done to begin with. Father, we just thank you for this class. Help us to teach, help our students to learn, and just be with us. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, we're going to, now every week, we're going to review what we did the previous week so that it can hopefully sink in more. Now, you all know that I'm putting these up on YouTube, right? Have any of you gone there and looked? I have, I just did the second half of the class, but our introductions, which might be helpful for us to go back so we can figure out who's who. The audio for some of them was really low. And I have figured out how to raise the audio of just that person. So I got started today and I should have that back up and going in a couple days. But okay, but first, now, this is something we're experimenting with.
Hey, Michael Dane, what are you up to?
Oh, I'm going to check into a net today with my HT.
Okay.
You want to see it?
Yeah, let's see it. Let's check it out.
All right. This is what I use as my daily driver now. This is a Kenwood THD74 Alpha. Here, this is the what we call the rubber ducky that comes with the radio.
It looks kind of like an antenna that goes on.
Yeah. That's a. But I don't use that. What I do is let me get this tucked in. And this is what I like about this. This is the antenna that I use. It's called a Smiley.
Oh, okay.
And this radio can use or can do 3 bands.
I see. It's a little different. It's got some copper integrated into the
well,
antenna.
this is a collapsible antenna.
Right.
You're able to adjust for VHF, UHF, and the 220 meter. But we're going to just do a check into a UHF.
Okay.
And
it extends way out.
I tune the radio by the length of the antenna, so you notice it collapses down.
Yeah. So you can get it way.
Yeah. So we're gonna go to VHF and let's see here. Let's activate and see if anybody's on.
Okay, so you got a little antenna farm going down there already, do you? Yeah, I've got to get my.
So we're listening to the lunchtime net.
Okay.
And it's on repeater 145370. We have this one Monday through Friday.
Okay.
And this is Mark K7 EAB.
Yeah, and they're just talking about stuff and updates. And
yeah, they're talking about antennas and things of that sort. This is a great net for visitors and as well as newly licensed operaters.
Yeah, and they can share information and knowledge about
ham radio.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's one that let me make sure we have the adequate.
Roger. I was thinking about maybe seeing if he was available this weekend.
This particular radio has 4 power settings, It will do 5 watts, 2 watts, 500 milliwatts, and
Wow.
50 milliwatts. So
That's, yeah, it could really get powerful, or if you're close, you don't need all that. Yeah.
here we go.
So here we go.
Whiskey 7 Alpha Lima X-ray. I'm portable in Depot Bay.
W7ALX, good afternoon, Michael. Come on in.
KB7 KUH W7ALX. Well, good afternoon, Don. Thank you for doing the net. We're here in Depot Bay on portable, along with the director for Public Works here, and I'm showing him the radio. This is the Kenwood THD 74. I'm running it on 2 watts at the moment. Anyway, sounding good. Thanks for doing the net, and once again, don't forget 7:30 this evening. Those who have HF capabilities, there's a net that Don will be running. 3940 is the frequency at 7:30 p.m. So back over to net control. This is W7ALX Depot Bay.
Okay, Michael, well, thanks for checking in. Great signal from the EOC trailer there. And again, thanks for checking in. And your guest here is impressed. we can do this in emergencies as long as the repeater's up, and then we also have simplex frequencies in case the repeater's down. So it's always good to be ready.
Awesome.
Yeah, Roger. Thank you, Don. 73s to all. W7ALX, I'll be clear.
So when he says simplex, Michael, that's, whoops, sorry. I'll let him finish.
Yeah, yeah, he's done.
So quick question on simplex. That's kind of like the old-fashioned walkie-talkies. It's like a direct, it's a direct radio to radio.
Exactly.
I see.
Radio to radio. And of course, we have different ways to attain that. You can use the antenna that I have here. Also, one of the other methods would be using a dipole or a beam antenna.
Right.
And what I like about this here, I'll show you. What I like about this is an adapter that I put on there. Now this is what we call a BNC connector.
I see.
And I can quickly switch, as you saw how fast it was.
Yeah, it's a quick
to pick it
coupler.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I can attach it to either a beam or to my mobile mount. So anyway, there you go.
Pretty cool setup. There's
Yeah.
another good shot of the front of the radio there of the Kenwood. Nice. It's the TH-D74.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Good. This is my daily driver. As
Yes,
they call
there
it.
you go.
All right. Thank
In
you.
the toolbox. You bet. Thanks everybody, and we'll see y'all soon.
Yeah, have a good day.
All right. I'm going to review last week. So we start out with the first window. We're going to be talking about technology, operating practices, and FCC rules and regulations. Now, I want to say to those who are here who know nothing, and D, I'm talking to you as one of the people. Do not be concerned by what you're finding in this particular book if you've got it, because this is intended for a very advanced license. What you're going to learn here is the basics and the grounds. You're going to have an understanding when you get ready to study for technician, you will be able to take the test and understand what's going on. And when you study for it, if you're not taking a class, either way, you'll have a much deeper understanding of what's going on, because I'm going to teach you stuff that you are not taught there. So there are extra privileges. One of the first ones that people think of is that you get extra frequencies that you can operate on. But honestly, there's only 4 bands and 8 little frequency windows that you can get into. If you're a person who likes to work DX or distance communications, that's a wonderful thing because it opens up doors that you cannot normally get into. You're going to learn a deep understanding of what amateur radio is about. Its practices, the equipment and how it works, how the different modes work, what they mean, just on and on. And then there's the VEs. I'm going to explain that in a moment. So if you're going to upgrade to extra, you need to pass the test. Now, how many in this room are planning on taking their extra? None. One. John's just kind of going like this. Look, eventually, I hope every one of you
Walk before you run.
learn to walk, learn to pace yourself, and then learn to run. Because the extra is, not only do you get the extra frequencies, which are 4 bands, 80, 40, 15, and 10. Now, when I was a kid and when I first got my novice license, in that area, there were only 5. This is 4 of the 5 bands that were available. There was 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10 meters. That was it. All these other bands were not available to amateurs at that time. So, but what we need are VEs, and that's a volunteer examiner. Okay. You need to pass the test, extra frequencies of the VE. When I started to get my extra class, I literally ended up waiting for months because one guy was studying to get his general and I was going for my extra, and we had to pull 3 VEs together. And that literally took months to get the 3 people in this county at this end of the county who could do the test. And we finally did it. So I taught a class 12 years ago. We produced 12 extra class people who became VEs, including Bruce back here. Praise the Lord. Thank you, Bruce. He's been very helpful.
A whole lot of luck.
So, and one of the things is when you get your extra class license, you know enough that you can actually help other people instead of always being in a situation where, I don't know, where do we look? How do we, I don't have any understanding of this. And we'll get into John's knowledge. He's laughing now. Okay, when you get your extra, you are entitled to a special call sign. You can either keep your old call sign, which some people do for their entire life. My old call sign was WA7MHB. By the time I got that out in the contest, the guy had already gone on to 2 or 3 other people. So one morning I woke up and thought of NJ7OK, applied for it, got it, and I'm really happy with my new call sign. So amateur extras get an A to start theirs. If you just ask for an extra class license, they'll make you AB7 CD or some equivalent of that, a 2x2 call with starting with an A. You can apply for special call signs, and there's pretty much anything you want. Okay, the testing process. Amateurs test amateurs. They have a VE and a VEC people who set it up. The VEC is the Volunteer Examiner Coordinator. The VE is a volunteer examiner. You need a VEC and 2 VEs to give a test. And amateur extras can test all of them, technician, general, and extra. A general can test amateur technicians. So there's 35 questions in the technician and the general and 50 questions in the extra. It's, you know, it's a friend of mine who was had a doctor's degree. He talked about his BS and then his MS. You get the picture, right? It's more of the same. So just study hard. Okay, now how many people picked up and checked out these practice tests? Thank you, Chuck. Oh, good. 2 in the class. I don't know about, oh, good. 3 of us here. You can go to these and you can start taking the test. Generally, they randomly feed you the questions. There are like 300 or 400 questions in the pool. And if you take as I said before, 35 for the first 2 levels, and for the extra, it's 50. So for each one of those, you got 300 or 400 questions in the pool. You start taking those. A lot of these are set up so that if you miss one, it will bring that one up again soon, and that will help you to do that. Now you can, and I know people who have just practice these tests until they get them down, and they memorize the answers and they really have no clue what's happening. John, okay.
Work for me.
You guys will learn. I'm a technical guy. I know how it works. I know how to make it work. I have to figure it out. That's the way I am. But I'll tell you something, if somebody works hard enough to memorize all of those questions so that they can pass the test, they've earned their license. Thing is, they won't know anything, John.
They know some things.
They know the question. Exactly.
They know the questions. And it's kind of a sad state of affairs. You have to learn through the backwards way. You've got the license. Now what do you do? So the intent of this class is to teach you this stuff that will help you understand your radios, understand propagation, understand how to get on the air and work, and hopefully get you to the point where you understand what's going on. Now, our next question here is how to use this book. And I wanted to repeat this. By learning this material, you'll go beyond just learning the answers. You'll understand the fundamentals behind them. And this makes it easier to learn, remember, and use what you know. And as we go through the course, I'm going to give you much more than what's in this big extra class manual in some of the areas. I'm going to start you out at a technician's level. What is a resistor and what is Ohm's law, and take you all the way to that horrible stuff that says, here's the math. Chuck will appreciate this, but I do not understand how people who are trying to train people expect them to respond. I mean, they say, you got to learn this, and then they cram it down your throat. You have no idea what for, why, or anything else. There's no incentive to learn anything. And I hope I can impart the incentive to learn. Okay, prepare yourself to learn about simple electronics through radio signals, antennas, propagation, and safety. Now, a word from Scott. Are you ready for this, Scott?
I guess so. You bet. It's gonna be interesting to see what you've got.
Okay, well, hopefully. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right.
Thank you. Yes, sir, Texas, thank you. PC contest, this is Norway 6 Whiskey.
Now, there's a special call.
Whiskey Alpha 9, Quebec, Echo, X-ray. Thank you, 59 count. Well, thanks much, you are 59 Illinois. Roger, thank you. WRTC contest, this is Norway 6 Whiskey.
Can you guys hear
Whiskey
this in the
7,
back?
Papa Mike Foxtrot.
Who's the Papa Mike Foxtrot?
Yeah, this is Whiskey 7, Papa Mike Foxtrot on the Oregon coast.
Whiskey 7, Papa Mike Fox, over on the Oregon coast. 5 and 9 into Sacramento. 73, thank you, sir.
Sacramento, you're a 5 and 9 plus 10. 5 and 9 plus 10.
Thank you, sir. WRTC contest, this is Norway 6 Whiskey. Kilo Foxtrot 6, Juliet. Kilowatt, 59 count.
Wait, do you know what contest that is?
No, I don't.
No, we can find out later. Okay.
It's real easy to find out what contest that would be. You can either look it up in your QST magazine, or else you can just look up that call sign N6W in what they call QRZ, and that has all those call signs in it, including yourself. So if I wanted to put W7 PMF, then type that into QRZ, bingo. Anybody that did that, they know all about my amateur radio and what it is and what my license is and so on. And where I live. That's what's nice about amateur radio, because you all are accountable. It's not like the internet. You actually are accountable, and if you don't do things right, they'll take that license away from you.
Yeah, well, and people get on you on the air too. But
that
that's-
doesn't happen very well.
Yeah, Scott, I mean, the reason I showed this is so that people could get an idea of what HF was like. And we've got a couple other examples in here that we'll be showing you in a little bit, just so you can get a feeling, because you saw Michael at the beginning with his handheld radio in the vertical position, and every technician should have a handheld radio. That's probably the first radio you will have. And there's many things that you can do with it. And if you're interested in emergency communications, that will be your most handy tool. And they're available. Jay, who was here earlier, had a little Bofang radio. They're very inexpensive. They're not the best radio in the world. They're a little bit hard to program, but he went online, figured it out, programmed it, got it all set up. And you can get on the air and you can help in emergencies primarily, or you can just get onto the Noontime Net, which he was listening to in that program. So, well, let's get started with chapter 2. Finally, let's see. Okay, in this chapter, you're going to learn frequencies available for the extra class licenses, DXing and contest operating, using a remote station, satellite orbits and signals, satellite transponders, frequencies, and modes. And I have a couple of people in the audience I'm going to be calling on to help out. But let's talk about general operating. Now here's how many people have seen this? Very good. Well, it's in your book. And it is also available online. You can go to ARRL, download this, print it out. You can print out 10 dozen copies if you want, plaster them all over your ham shack, put them in your car, whatever. But these are the frequencies. Now you notice there's 3 columns, and the left-hand column goes from a very low frequency, very large metric system. And the second from the bottom, do you see where it says 80 meters?
Mhm.
Everybody sees that? Now look at the very top line of that grouping where there's an A on the right-hand side. That's amateur extra, or that's an E, excuse me. And then there's that section between the red, just to the right of the red, where it says 3600 to 3700. That is where much of the DX hangs out. That's an exclusive part of the band. It's to encourage you to get your extra. And that if you want to work DX, that's a place you want to be. So that's an extra spot. And then if you look at the red on the left-hand side, it goes from 3500 to 3525. It's only 25 kilohertz, but in CW, that's a lot of room. And again, if you're an amateur extra and you want to work DX, that's the place you want to be, because that's where the DX stations mostly hang out. So in the center column, there's 40 meters, 20 meters, and 15 meters. And you can see it's the same thing for each one of those bands. There's a section, you can see the green on 40 meters, the very top one in the center column. It goes all the way over. And Daron, I guess you don't have to get your extra because you have full privileges on that for phone.
You might want to, if you want, just point some of these out.
I have access to some extra calls for that kind of thing.
Oh,
Some club calls.
Oh, club calls, right, right. Well, you know, that's one thing about the club and our station here. As long as there's an extra in the room with you, kind of keeping an eye over you, you can operate on anywhere in the band, all the way up to through extra. So we've got our club station here. If a technician comes over and wants to try HF, and I'm here, or Bruce is here, or
So do you still use your own call sign or use a? club
you use
sign?
the club call sign. So yeah, you would not want to operate on the extra part of the band and use your own call sign. You would find yourself being talked to most likely because you're way out. So with the mouse, but you can see this little spot right here. Just above it is the advanced. If we come straight down, watch my arrow come down. Here's the gap on 20 meters. And it's just below there, but that's the end. And then if you come over here to the left, and it's the same on each one of these, there's 25 kilohertz right there for the extra. And the
So
same.
is there some theory behind how all of these get allocated? Or so much? I mean, why should there be a gap like that?
It's because it encourages people to get their extra license.
That's the reason.
Yeah, just a quick explanation. These bands we're looking at 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10. They were not used when amateur radio started. In fact, nobody even believed that anything would work at that high a frequency. They were actually operating, if you look at the left-hand side of the screen up here, this is the kind of area here when they first started amateur radio where they were working. Boy, that's there. They operated in those frequencies, and they actually had transmitters that were spark gap transmitters. And when you create a spark, it creates a very broad frequency signal. And everybody, the commercial people and the amateurs, were all working essentially on the same frequency. And they could all hear each other. And that's how we got our name, because they thought that the amateur radio operators were hams. And they hammed it up and they made a mess on the air. That's what their idea was. Well, hams loved it. They kept the special. But as time went by, they discovered that things propagated better at higher frequencies. And that's when the tubes came into existence in the 1920s and 30s. And they started using tubes, and they started using oscillators, and they would amplify the oscillator, and they would have that do out. So they ended up allotting 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10. And that's how we got those frequencies. And that's every single one of you. I want to hear it. What are the frequency, the bands?
80, 40, 20, 15.
And great. Now, 80 meters is what frequency?
3.5 megahertz.
Oh, you're reading it.
Yes, it was.
Well, guess 3.5 megahertz. Okay, what's 40 meters?
7.
What is 7 compared to 3.5?
Twice.
It's twice. What's the next band?
20. 14.
14 megahertz. What's the next band?
28.
No, it's not 28. It's not double this time. It's 3 times 7.
21.
21 megahertz or 15 meters. And the one after that is, no, we're talking about 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10. 10 meters is, somebody said it, I heard it, 28 megahertz, which is 4 times 7. Why did they do that? Every time you create a signal, it has harmonics. So if you have, oh, wait a minute, 2 minutes ago, you showed me 10 minutes. Chuck just showed me 10 minutes. Good for you.
It just changed on my.
Oh, good, good. Every time you create a radio signal, it has harmonics. A harmonic of 3.5 is 7. Harmonic of 7 is 14. Another harmonic of 7 is 21. Another harmonic of 7 or 14 is 28. And those, if you're got a transmitter with a lot of nasties on it and it's not clean, it'll create a lot of harmonics and it'll end up in the wrong bands. So they started out with 3.5 to, well, they didn't start out with, but at one point they decided 3.5 to 4 megahertz. And if somebody had a messy transmitter in there, it was not going to interfere with anything but other ham radio bands. So if you remember those 5, you've got the foundation from which to figure out the rest of them, of the frequencies.
I missed the significance of 7. Why is it always a multiple of 7?
7 is a multiple of 3.5.
Oh, so we're starting at 3.5?
Yeah, that's
one
80
more.
meters. Tell me the rest.
What?
3.5 is 80 meters.
Yeah,
7, which is double 3.5, is,
40 meters.
and carry it right through.
14 is 20, 21 is 15, and 28 is 10.
Exactly.
I think she's talking.
She does have it. And hopefully you guys understand how we got to that point.
Okay, so
So-
maybe, let me ask it this way. Why are we starting at 3.5? I mean,
I was not there when they decided to do that.
oh,
I
so
don't know.
just pick
Are you
one.
sure?
Those from there.
Darren, no, I'm starting to feel like I was there. Thank you. Anyway, okay, any questions about the frequencies right now or the little band sections that are added? Nope.
Mm-mm.
So it looks like I got 7 minutes.
Hey,
There.
Joe, this is David
Yeah.
Jameson. Sorry, I do have a question, and this is going to be a dumb question, I'm sure, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I'm on Zoom.
Good.
For the green, this is regarding the key, the legend. For the green, it says phone and image. What is an image? I'm not familiar with what that is.
Slow scan TV, television.
Oh, television.
Except it's not like we're looking at. I'm looking over here at another monitor, and I can see you talking. It's not like that at all. But you have the bandwidth of a single sideband signal, and you can send out tones, and it takes just a little bit of time, but you can actually create an image. So you can send images over HF. And there's a section of the phone portion, the green portion of the band, where people send images. Legally, you can send it anywhere in where you're permitted to in the green portion, but there is a section where they do that, and you can find places that list what the popular area for sending various kinds of transmissions are. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did.
Oh,
Thank you.
good. Good. Okay, now DXing. DX stands for distance, and DX comes from CW, continuous wave. Da. Yes, Chuck. Oh, 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little bit of DX. When that is over, we'll take our break. So now, hopefully,
VE4 station, this is W7PMF.
I'm not sure if I got that or not. W7 anyway, I heard a week 7 there. I don't want to time out my being here, but give it another go. We'll see if we can make it over.
Oh, you bet. VE4 station, this is W7PMF. I'm sorry I didn't get your complete call, but I'm Whiskey 7 Papa Mike Foxtrot on the Oregon coast, US. QSL?
Okay, is that Whiskey 7 Papa Mike Foxtrot?
Absolutely, you're correct. Whiskey 7 Papa Mike Foxtrot.
Roger, roger. My call is Victor Echo for Queen Zebra. It used to be VE4 Quick Zipper, but now it is VE4 Quiet Zone. Over.
the name.
VE4 QZ, this is W7PMF. The handle here is Scott, Sierra Charlie Oscar Tango Tango. And I'm in a little town of Walport, Oregon. right on the Pacific coast, and we're about 150 miles to the south and west of Portland, Oregon. QSL?
Roger, got you there. The name here is Denmark Oscar Uniform Golf White Dump Old Ugly Crouch. I missed your name, I got the 2 T's, but I didn't get the rest of it over.
Sure. Doug, the handle here is Scott. Sierra, Charlie, Oscar, Tango, Tango. Sierra, Charlie, Oscar, Tango, Tango. QSL?
QSL, I should have got that when I hit the 2 T's. I might have known that's what it was, but I don't know. You're about a 5'6" or 5'6" in Manitoba, over.
Thank you for the 5.6 in Manitoba, and I'll give you a signal report on the next go around. But it's very nice signal and a very nice audio, Doug.
Very good. Well, that's lied to you. You're 5'8" now, 5'8". 58 Manitoba, Scott, over.
Oh yes, Doug, you're a 5 and 7, and it's the band is a little bit up and down, but that's not too bad. And very nice to speak to you in Manitoba. And I can remember coming into Manitoba from the States in the Midwest, and we had a car breakdown, and I can't recall exactly what the town was, fair size though, and the people there in your area, your province, are just wonderful people, so helpful, and got me and my family back on the road again. And many thanks. I always have great feelings whenever I hear the call, or when I hear Manitoba. VE4 QZ W7 PMF.
Roger, W7 Peter Mike Fox. Peter Mike Fox or Peter Mike Sugar, over.
It's Foxtrot. It's Foxtrot.
Roger, Roger. Very good. Yeah, we had the same situation in Illinois.
Where I'm from.
Illinois, that's years ago. We had a problem, and the ham guys got hold of us, brought us out a camper, and we made it. We made it. Thanks to everybody down there, over.
Oh, you bet. Well, that's great. It's fun. And I used to be K9 PMF from Peoria, Illinois. So I know those folks back there very well. A lot of farmers in my family. At any rate, I just wanted to touch bases with you, Doug. We're recording this and working for an extra folks that are working for anywhere from general to extra licenses are taking a course, and we're showing them a little bit about what amateur radio is like. I'm taking the course just for a wonderful refresher, because it's been about, gee whiz, since 2014 when I got my extra. But at any rate, it's not going to be too long, and I'm going to have to re-up for my next 10 years. At any rate, Doug, thanks very much for coming back. W7 PMF back to VE4 QZ.
Roger, Scott, 100%. Very good. Well, we'll let you go there. I'm going to have to go here too, so pleasure working you. Thanks for giving me the show. Whiskey 7, Peter Mike Fox. Victor Echo 4, quiet. No, it's going to be quiet. Take care, Scott.
Oh, I sure will, Doug. VE4 GZ, all the very best, and 73 from W7 PMF.
see you later.
Well, you
Uh,
ran 2 over, but that wasn't really your fault, it was Scott's.
You got that, right?
Scott, next time, let's be on time, huh?
Yeah, you can see me rubbing my hands out there. It was only about 55 degrees in that garage.
Oh,
And I had the little fire in the little stove that's in there.
Yeah, we had fun. That was yesterday afternoon. And we've got one more in here, so after the break we'll do it. But let's take a 10-minute break. And DXing. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, DX stands for distance, and it came from code. Da 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 da. Oops, excuse me. Da 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 da. DX. That stands for distance. There's HF, high frequency, where we get on and we talk around the world. And there's also VHF DXing. And that's if you're doing 100 or 200 miles, that's considered DX for VHF. And there's a lot of ways to do that. Just for those who know little, VHF is actually the frequency range of 30 megahertz to 300 megahertz. So your 6 meter, which is 50 megahertz, your 2 meter, which is 145 megahertz about, and your 220, which is 1.25, 1.25 meters, is 220 megahertz. So they're all in the VHF range. And basically, we're going to learn a lot about the ionosphere. But when VHF frequencies hit the ionosphere, they just plow straight through. So where HF frequencies, when they hit the ionosphere, they go up, they get bent, and they come back down. And then they bounce off the Earth, they go back in the ionosphere, get bent back down, and they can literally go all the way around the world. People can speak and then hear their echo at times when the conditions are just right. And so that's HF, but VHF, that's another thing. So VHF is line of sight. It goes straight and it keeps going straight. So if you're standing here and you're trying to talk to somebody who's 15 miles away, we think that's a straight line, but the truth is that's rotating. The Earth is round, and in 15 miles, and you're standing on the Earth, people can't see you, no matter how powerful their telescope is. And so the signal will just go straight out over the top of them. But you go stand on your roof, and they can see you. So the next thing I want to talk about is watering holes. In your book is a list, and I did not put it in this presentation because it's in your book, but of the watering holes for DXing. And there's a list in there that gives all the different frequencies where it is common for people to go and call and listen for DX stations. And that's something, if you want to do that, figure out what's going in there. And by the way, those of you who are going for your extra class, when you go through the books, they're talking about the questions that are on the test. And in the back of the book are the questions with the answers. So you can read it in the text, and it'll say right in the text, this is what this one's about. You can read the question and have the answer right there so you can figure it out. But that's something you need to work with when you're practicing. Pile-ups. When you have a station that is rare, you can get a pile up. In other words, he'll get on there and he'll say, CQ, this is the best station in the world. Give me a call. And that's not what they'll say. And then 100 stations will go, wow, I got to get him. And they'll all call at the same time. That's called a pile up. And here in a little bit, we'll get a demonstration what a pile up sounds like, because we got to observe one today. What DX stations will do, and this is the reason that those little windows of frequency, remember the chart and the little narrow windows that were there? A station that is outside of the United States, they've got different rules. And they can, for instance, operate on phone just below what is called our phone band. So a station could go down and is it 30? Is it 3980? Or and I mean 30.
3580 maybe?
No, that would be CW. I'm trying to look, say just below the
3600.
3600.
Yeah.
Is that the low end?
Mhm.
Okay, they will go to 3595 and they'll start transmitting. The hams in the United States will go down to 36, between 3600 and 36,
35.
35 or 25.
They'll go to 30, excuse me, 36.
Plus,
3630.
they will go into that window. The ham that is outside of the United States will transmit and he will announce that he's listening in a specific window that's in the amateur bands, but it's usually in the extra portion. But he might go to a higher position, but it's usually 5 kilohertz or 10 kilohertz away. He'll say, CQDX, this is XY 713, no, 7BJ. I'm just making something up, call sign, up 10. And so the people that are looking to talk to him will transmit back to him 10 kilohertz up from where he is. So he has a clear frequency. When you're working DX, the one thing that you want to do is listen for a little bit. If you've got a station that you really want to get, it will probably take you a half an hour maybe, or more or less, to actually work that station, because you're going to have to be patient and take your turn and call and call and call until he hears you. And you might have to wait for 30 other stations who have 1500 watts and a 6-element beam pointed at this person, and they got an extremely powerful signal. Now you might have a long wire antenna and 100 watts, which is, you can get in with it. Tell you, when 10 meters opens up, you can talk to New Zealand with 5 watts.
And I've done
It when that band opens up, I mean, it's beautiful.
Yep.
So question. So the remote person you're trying to talk to is on one frequency.
Correct.
Right? But he's listening on a different frequency. How does that actually happen? Does he have to keep moving his radio? I mean, the frequency on the radio back and forth?
That is a good question. Chuck, you got an answer?
I do. The modern radios, almost all radios have what they call splits. You can set it up. So you can be, we'll just for simplicity say that you're on 35, 3.5 or 3.6, whatever. And so you set it up ahead of time and the split will be up 5 kcs from there. And it just automatically will do that for you so that you, when you go to transmit, your radio switches up, and then when you quit transmitting, it goes back down. Now, the old radios, yes, that's exactly what you had to do, was keep switching, turning your dials, but almost all the radios since the 70s, I think, or the 80s have been able to do the splits.
Probably the 80s.
Yeah.
The old radios would have a separate unit, which was a separate, which is called a VFO, variable frequency oscillator. And you could set it up so that you transmit on the VFO that's in your radio and you receive on the VFO that's separate. So you'd have to have special equipment and have it set up. And you'd have a radio that's this big and then a VFO sitting over here this big. And sorry, people that are, oh, well, maybe you can. Maybe you can get the picture. But anyway, yeah, a good question. Any other questions?
Is there a rule as far as how far above or below?
Well, it's
We're gonna
typical 5 kc. It might be like from 5 to 10. Yeah. Scott, please answer that.
Oh, I was thinking he was asking about another thing.
Oh.
On the lower side band and the upper side band. Yeah. And you want to keep 3 kHz above the lower side.
Oh, yeah. That's, we'll actually talk about that later.
Yeah.
Okay. This is when a year ago, if you tried to talk to somebody on 10 meters, it was almost impossible. 10 meters was as closed as anything you can imagine. It did not propagate. Today, we were talking that DX station, that was 10 meters, 28 megahertz plus something. Scott might know what it is. But 10 meters is opening up. We are on the upswing of what's called a sunspot cycle. Sunspots have a major influence on our ionosphere. If there's a lot of sunspots, it makes our ionosphere, I'm just going to say, really hard. And the signals bounce and or get reflected through it much easier when they're hard. So if there's a lot of sunspots, that happens. And there's something else that a lot of people don't know, is that earthquakes will affect our ionosphere. And I have set up in my shack, it's not operating right now, it's actually in for repair, an RF seismograph invented by a friend of mine who lives in Vancouver, BC. And I sent him two of my little computers so he could get them all set up for his new system that he's got going. Anyway, but moving on. We are on the upswing. It's a 11-year cycle. 5 years from now, the conditions will be as good as they get, and then it'll start dropping off again. So is that about right, Scott?
That's about right.
Yeah.
Yep. So we're just starting the sunspot cycle 25, and so we're kind of on the bottom, the 4 time, and it's rapidly beginning to increase. And like you said, 10 meters is fantastic now compared to things a year or two previous. You thought it would be impossible.
Yep. Okay. So the sunspot cycles are improving. The conditions are getting better. Pretty soon you'll be able to get on 10 meters and literally talk around the world. Band conditions. Today we ran into band conditions. We were trying to, or yesterday, I'm sorry, work Japan. The bands were just closed. It was not working. So You need to know and this is something that we're going to be taught through this class, is how the band conditions work, how they work seasonally, what affects them. And so we're going to learn all of that. The solar conditions I've already discussed. There is a beacon network, and you can go online, you can go to this, and what it does is it shows a map of the world. It shows a transmitter that pops up with a little dot on there with its call sign. And then it has this little countdown, and you can see it counting down. So it starts out with a strong signal and goes to a weak one. If you can't hear it, you're not going to be able to talk to them on that frequency. If you hear it when it's really strong, conditions are kind of poor to that. If you hear that tone all the way down, that the path between you and that station is open. And it's a really slick program. I have it on one of my computers. I don't know if I have it on this, but anyway, there is also software that's for propagation prediction. You can, I don't know if you can download it for free. I at one time had downloaded one and used it years ago. If you get seriously interested in working DX, that's a very handy tool to have. Okay, now, oops. All right, there. Speaking about pileups,
This is the Parks on the Air station.
Thank you for the 590 Ohio. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And they go into various parks, just like our tab. And set up their equipment and try and make as many contacts as they can from that particular park that they're in.
right? Can you try to contact them? That's rather a pileup.
Sure.
I'm out here a lot, though I don't think I will be tomorrow because my wife is having a little procedure, so I might not be here tomorrow, okay? Yeah, Roger. I hope it goes well.
Let's find out where he is.
Who teach in the vet school here. Well, my brother graduated back in like 82, so they're probably not the same people, okay? Yeah, no, probably not. Okay, good luck to you. Thanks for being there. NJ7OK. 73 from Kilo Golf 9 and Julia Papato.
I'll swing my beam down a little bit closer to him.
There we go. Charles, 59.59 and a kilo 4336 Wisconsin. QSL.
Wisconsin, it's about 90 degrees from here. Whiskey 7, Papa Mike Foxtrot, Oregon.
Zulu Foxtrot. Mike, you're 58.58 and a kilo 4326 Wisconsin. QSL. Thanks for the Fog 9 near Springfield. I know where you are. 73 from Kilo Golf 9 at Julia Papakia. Is that
Whiskey 7, Papa Mike Foxtrot.
Tango Romeo Mike, your full call?
Whiskey 0, Tango Romeo Mike, you're 5-7 in Colorado.
Thank you, Tom, for the 5-7. I'm going to return the 57. 5-7 in the kilo. 4326 Wisconsin. QSL?
5-7 and 4326, 73, thanks for the park.
73, thanks for hunting. This is Kilo Golf 9 at Julia Papakia. Is that
Whiskey 7, Papa Mike Foxtrot.
Wow, SMS guys. I heard an America. Ending in America only, please. November 0, Yankee Mike Alpha. November 0, Yankee Mike Alpha. Trevor, you're 59.59 in the kilo 4326 in Wisconsin. QSL?
Yep, 959 from northwestern Minnesota, 3 miles from Free Healthcare.
Yeah, it's really weird that band is short that I can pick up northern Minnesota today, okay?
Yeah, beautiful signal. Have a great day.
73, thanks for hunting. This is Kilo Golf 9 at Julia Papakia. Is that
Whiskey 7, Papa Mike Foxtrot.
I heard ending in Delta Kilo.
So
This is-
once you call a pilot, there's got a lot of people who are trying to contact him. And
we gave up on that one.
just in Wisconsin.
So that's what a pileup is like. You call and you call and you call. Now, if Scott really needed that guy and he wanted to sit there for half an hour, just wait, keep plugging. One of those times there'd be an open window, the guy would hear him and they would make contact. But you know,
Is it
there's
not possible to automate that process?
Yes,
I mean, it just seems like,
not a good idea, but yes, there is.
well, why is it not a good idea?
Well, because it tends to go on and on. A lot of times people it becomes an automated call, you know. It sounds the same each and every time and people
I
go, oh,
They're not interested in the robot call.
yeah.
Oh, I see.
They want to talk to real people.
But.
Yeah, people need to talk to real people.
Pile up too, because whenever they hear like you two ladies on, for some reason, these old dudes will just all.
We've got to partner up now.
Robert had a question.
yeah, Robert. But somebody just said something.
No, I just said that people need to talk to real people.
Yeah.
That was my
Well,
comment.
there is an exception to this. Like during field day, if you are a calling station, I mean, there's two kinds of things. There's people that get on there and they sit in the same frequency and they call CQ field day. This is what's our no, N70Y. N70Y over or QRZ, and 30 people come back. Well, after you've said that 150 times, you get to the point where so there are little machines you can get up and they're just little calling machines. You punch the button and it does the call for you. And then when it stops, it listens. And then you talk to somebody and you punch the button again and it makes the call again and it saves. I mean, when some of these contests, I mean, they go for 24 hours and some people sit there for 24 hours and that's all they do. And they're worn out, you know, by time the whole thing's over with. So anyway, where were we? Next, what? Nothing. Oh, contesting or radio sport. In fact, I was just talking about that. The ARRL field day is a contest, and there are all kinds of contests. And contests, I mean, the good thing about contests is when you get involved in contests, it really develops your skills. You learn to hear a call sign. You learn to hear a call sign in the middle of 20 other people calling. You learn to hear through noise in what's called QRM. That's QRM is a Q signal, which came from the code days, but M stands for man-made noise. And you get on and you have a pile up and you've got a lot of QRM. So there, of anything that I like to do, I do like a contest. And that's because when I talk to somebody, I say, this is NJ7OK, you're 5x7, Oregon, bye, and it's over with. I mean, I like talking to friends and stuff like that. I love talking to them, but on the radio, well, I think one time, I think maybe this comes from one time many years ago. I started talking to somebody and he said something and I went off and I probably talked for 15 minutes. It didn't stop. I was, he was there, but boy, that poor guy. Anyway, oh well, that was I've changed a lot since then. There are resources for contesting. There is the ARRL operating manual, which I would recommend for anybody to get an old one or even a new one, and use it to help you figure out what to do when you're on the air. Because it tells you what to say, how to do it, how to go about it, how to set stuff up. I mean, it's really a useful book. Yeah, the Amateur Radio Contesting for Beginners is another one. Yeah, it's right in there, Chuck. You should be able to find it. And yeah, just
It's right here in the library, and anybody.
yeah,
wants to
hand
check
it up
out can.
up to me.
Oh.
These cost about $25 or $30 to me to do all that.
You oftentimes get.
This is the book. You can see it on my monitor. I actually see it. So anyway, it's a medium thickness book, has a lot of useful information for operating, and that's something that I think every ham should have a copy of. The National Contest Journal, yeah, that's it's a newsletter, includes in-depth articles on contesting, interviews, projects, product reviews. I mean, it's very useful. The ARRL Contest Update, that's a bi-weekly email newsletter. It's free. CQ Contest and VHF Contesting. They're email reflectors, and that's free. So those are sources you can use to help you figure out where people are and what's going on, and what the contests are.
And those are e-zines. They're on the, you can get them off the internet.
Yes, you can get that's on the internet, correct. I should have said that. So contesting or in the radio sport, more about that, submitting a log. Now, a log, you do not have to keep a log today. When I became an amateur, if you did not keep your log and dot every I, the threat was there. Nobody ever checked, but honestly, you don't have to do it anymore. John.
Prudence is asking in chat what you meant when you said 5 by 7. What does that mean?
Let's see. Let me get my mind in gear here. Hi, Broody.
Goes back to the CW days.
Yes, thank you. In fact, that's a very good thing. If you go back to CW, if you had a 599 signal, that meant that you had a perfectly good copyable signal. It was very strong, and its tone was perfect. If you had a CW transmitter that was not clean, and it would go chirp, 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 which some of them did, they called it chirp, you would get a 5 by 9 by 5 or 4, because it was a sad sounding signal. Well, when you went to phone, they carried that over to phone, but they dropped the last digit. So a 5 by 9 is a very good signal. 5 means it's very readable. 9 means it's an S9. And if you have a HF transceiver, it's got a little meter on it. And when it receives, it flops back and forth with the person talking. And if it peaks at S9, that means it's a very strong signal. And I'm trying to think of one of the companies, big companies many years ago, set S9 at 50 microvolts. So if the signal hitting your antenna was 50 microvolts, that was an S9. And remember Scott earlier, he said you've got a 5 by 9 plus 10. And plus 10 means plus 10 dB. And we'll We'll get into dB in detail, but that's a way of measurement. If you go plus 3 dB, that's twice as strong of a signal. So that would be 100 microvolts. And you go plus 10, that would be 10 times 50 microvolts, or it'd be 500 microvolts. So that's not all the radios are real accurate in that, but it gives a pretty close measurement. Prudy, did that answer your question?
Well, thank you. So okay, so there's the signal and then there's the tone. So the 5x7, the 5 was the signal and the 7 was the tone?
No, that's not correct. That you're going back to the CW, and the tone is not used on phone. So the 5 is the readability. So if you got a 5, that means you're perfectly understandable like you are right now, and I am. But if it were a 4, that means there's you're a little bit weak, or there's a little bit of interference, and they're having just a little trouble understanding you. But 90% of it's coming through. If you're a 3, for instance, you're pretty difficult to understand. And the person has to listen very carefully to hear you, and they're going to miss quite a few words. If you're a 2, you're barely getting through. If you're a 1, you're just forget it. So, and then the 9 or the 7, that's an S unit. S1, S5, S9, and that's the signal strength. And that's what I was talking about, 50 microvolts.
Well, when we did that practice event one weekend where we were trying to replicate an emergency, and we all checked in, and Jenny was kind of in charge, and everybody was reporting using this 5x7, and I kind of didn't get it then, so I'm glad it came up.
Oh, okay. Now, do you understand?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, good. Okay, and I got my computer plugged in, so it's charging back up. All right, next. Submitting a log. If you do a contest, you need to keep a log so you can keep track of everybody that you're talking to. The band, and usually it's the band that you're on, the call sign, and sometimes there's an exchange, like in field day, CQ field day, or we say this is N7OK 3 Alpha Oregon. 3 Alpha means that we've got 3 transmitters that can operate at the same time, and Oregon is the area that you're in. And so there's that's called the exchange. So you have that in your log. Now, if you do it with a computer, which most people, when they set up, they do it on a computer. The computer the program in the computer should generate somebody want to pronounce this, Cabrillo?
That's it.
I got it right. Well, a Cabrillo formatted computer file that you can then email to, for instance, ARRL, or whoever is sponsoring the contest. And so, and it comes, it's a computer file. It has very specific formation. You can go to for the ARRL contest, you can go to their contest log submission.arrl.org, and there you can pick out the contest. It'll pull up the file, and it'll show you exactly what it should look like. And then you fill it in, or if you're doing it with a computer logging program, most of them have all of these built into it, and it'll just generate the reporting file for you and you can send it in. So, and I've done that for this club several times. And it's actually a fairly easy thing to do. Okay. Using spotting networks. Now this is for people who are planning on working contests. That might not be everybody. But if you get involved in a contest, there are things that come over the internet, and somebody will hear somebody calling, and they'll spot the person. They'll say, so-and-so, who is some rare DX somewhere, is operating at this frequency right now. And you'll see that, and you go to that frequency and you'll try to work them. And it's a very handy thing. Some of the contests say you can't do that at all. Some of them say that's a fine thing to do. But there's one thing that you don't do, and that's spot yourself. That's considered cheating. As it says, HF contest rules generally require that soliciting contacts be done only on the bands of the contest and without intermediate stations or the internet. So that's the typical rule. So you don't spot yourself, but a spotting, if you're contesting, you can have your computer going, you can have it on a spotting website, and it'll tell you all the places where people are finding the hot stations. Okay, remote stations. And Chuck?
Yes, sir.
You have 1 minute to go.
I know,
All remote stations allows you to operate a station from another location via internet or radio. Now, there are lots of reasons for doing that. It used to be pretty rare, but now I can pull this thing out, and if I had the program on here, I could open it up, start a radio that's in New York, out by I don't know. I'm trying to think of some remote place in New York. But who?
White Plains.
White Plains, New York. Anyway, and you can operate the radio from this over the internet. You can do that with your computer. You could have a radio that goes to another radio that's operating a third radio and have that happen. Now, why would you want to do that? Anybody got any answers?
Yeah.
Scott?
Yeah, one of the reasons is you might live in an area where they got an HOA that prevents you from putting up a fantastic antenna.
Yep.
And if that happens, what you could do is you could remote to a place that has one of those real nice radio plus a system plus a great antenna system. And there's an article in QST magazine about that.
Is that this month's?
This month's, it's very interesting. But at any rate, that's a way that
Right.
that you might want to remote.
Yeah, I live in a place that's got an HOA. However, the founder of the HOA happened to be a ham. I did not know that when I moved in, but I was not active in amateur radio and I didn't care. But after I got active, I did care, and I discovered, oh, this is wonderful.
Was that Charlie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, who passed away several years ago. A wonderful man. He did fabulous things for our community. But I was given a permission in writing from the board of directors of our organization to put up a 60-foot tower, which is an extremely rare thing in an HOA. So, but I never put it up because the city demanded that I get a licensed Oregon-based engineer to approve the tower, and it didn't matter if it had been approved a billion times over somewhere else. It had to be in Oregon. I mean, you know, they figured out a way to keep me from doing it. So anyway, you may live in an RF noisy area, and in the middle of the center of this town of Newport, it's noisy. And you get on the air and just all this motors going off and all the switching and everything going on around town creates a tremendous amount of noise. So sometimes the noise levels can get to the area, unless somebody's got an S9 signal, which is a strong signal, you can't hear them. They're below the noise. That's one of the reasons people go digital, because the digital methods actually allow you through the computer to hear underneath the noise. But or you might travel a lot. You know, you might be on an airplane flying here, flying there, everything else. And if all you've got to do is pull this out, there have been people who have been on airplanes actually operating on the air.
A lot of people with their motor homes and trailers do the same thing. They just leave their station remote at home and operate from wherever they are to that.
Oh, yeah.
station.
Yeah, that's something I had not thought of. Yeah, so was everybody able to hear Chuck? Did anybody hear Chuck? I hear nothing. Basically, he said that people who have their motor home, they will leave their station running at home with a remote setup, and then wherever they go, they can operate their station. So I've been thinking about Dave Sanford's place. I had not thought of that before.
I heard Chuck. I had no problem hearing him.
Oh, okay, good, good. All right. Now there's one of the rules that I need to point out is if you're operating remote within the United States, you can use your call sign and you don't have to do anything else. But if you have a radio station that you're operating for in Brazil, for instance, you would have to, if your call was K1 ABC, you would have to say PY/K1 ABC. Okay.
So Joe, I got a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So if you're, say I'm in California, which would never happen, but do I have to go KB7 KUH/6?
No.
Okay, you don't have, I thought one time you had to do that.
If the transmitting station is in Oregon, you don't have, I mean, say you're an Oregonian, you got an Oregon call and the station is in Oregon.
Oh, okay. What if you're mobile in What if you're mobile in California? If you're actually down there, you have to put a /6 behind it?
Well, yes, and you have to say you're
Okay.
mobile.
Okay.
Also, I mean, if you're doing that, but if you're working a remote station, you have, this one I'm not sure. Scott, do you know the answer to that?
I was just, all I was going to add was that it's very, very appropriate for the station that's operating remote to indicate that he is remote. And that's very typical. When you're talking to a station that's working through a remote access, he'll tell me that he's remote.
Okay, so, but that's not required, correct?
No, it's not
So typically what's done is people let others know that they are operating remote. Now, I've been given the 5-minute, 3-minute notification.
Fun.
Our next one is amateur satellites. So actually this is where we will start next time. But are there any questions up to this point? Any confusion or misunderstandings or or whatever. So, well, everybody,
Okay.
thank you for coming. And next week we will start with satellites.